Japanese officials are considering a plan to ease entry restrictions on people traveling from abroad. They say they have more data about the Omicron variant and they expect to see progress in the rollout of booster shots.
Hi guys, this is Alan. Welcome back to this channel, Gaijin World. And kung hindi ka pa nakapag-subscribe, mag-subscribe ka na and i-hit mo yung notification bell para lagi kang updated sa aming mga travel ban news dito sa Japan. And i-check nyo yung aming playlist dahil maraming mga playlist dyan na makakatulong sa inyong pamumuhay dito sa Japan, gaya ng student visa playlist, working in Japan playlist, driving in Japan playlist, at kung ano-ano pa, kaya i-check nyo yan guys. So dumako na tayo sa news ngayong February 16, 2022. Ano na nga ba ang lagay ng travel ban dito sa Japan? Alamin natin sa video na to. So, news from Kyodo website, ito ang news nila. Japan is planning to ease its cap on the number of daily new entrants from overseas, introduced to prevent the spread of coronavirus from the current 3,500 to 5,000 next month in March daw. So, magiging from 3,500 people ang papapasukin nila ay i-increase na nila into 5,000 people daily, while considering scrapping the strict quarantine requirement upon arrival, a government source said Tuesday. The government is looking at eliminating the current 7-day quarantine period for non-resident entrants if they present certificates showing a negative COVID-19 test result and a third vaccine dose, the source said. So ngayon ay mas luluwagan na nila yung kanilang mga policy para ikaw ay makapasok dito. Kung ikaw ay non-resident entrants, ang kailangan mo lang gawin daw ay mag-present ng negative COVID-19 test result at meron ka na ring third vaccine booster na dose. Okay, so with the government stepping up efforts against the spread of the highly transmissible Omicron variant of the coronavirus, the border controls introduced in late November bar new entries by foreign nationals with few exceptions until the end of this month. The restrictions, the strictest among the group of 7 industrialized nations, have been criticized as too tough by business and academic circles at home and abroad. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is expected to hold a press conference Thursday to explain the details of the plan. The top government spokesman said Tuesday that some 150,000 foreign students who hold Japan visas were unable to enter the country by the end of last year due to its COVID-19 border controls. Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno also disclosed at a regular press conference that the number of people newly entering Japan from November 29 to February 10 totaled about 6,000. Matsuno said the government is aware that there are various requests regarding the measures and it is considering presenting a plan to ease them as soon as possible. His remarks came after the ruling Liberal Democratic Party asked the government to allow foreign students to enter Japan. Until November, up to 5,000 were allowed in each day. So ayan ang news galing sa Kyodo at alamin naman natin yung iba pang news sa ibang website. Okay, so ito naman ay galing sa NHK. Japan mules raising cap on entrants allowing new foreign arrivals.
Japanese officials are considering a plan to ease entry restrictions on people traveling from abroad. They say they have more data about the Omicron variant and they expect to see progress in the rollout of booster shots. But the new rules will not apply to tourists. Currently, new foreign arrivals have been suspended in principle in Japan. Returning Japanese and a limited number of foreigners are required to self-isolate for 7 days upon arrival or to stay at designated accommodations for up to 10 days to help prevent the further spread of the variant. Starting from March, the daily cap on entrants, including foreigners, is likely to be raised from 3,500 to 5,000. Officials are also considering allowing people to end self-isolation if they test negative on the 3rd day. Those who have gotten a booster shot and come from regions where the Omicron variant is not spreading are expected to be spared self-isolation.
Okay, according sa NHK, Japan is considering raising the upper limit of the number of people arriving in the country and accepting foreigners under certain conditions from March. New foreigners' arrivals have been suspended in principle. Returning Japanese and other residents are required to self-isolate for 7 days upon arrival to help prevent the further spread of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. The government now plans to ease the restrictions in phases, citing more data obtained on the variant and the prospect that the rollout of vaccine booster shots will progress. Officials are making arrangements to allow new foreign arrivals, with the exception of tourists, if they take appropriate anti-infection measures and meet other conditions. The daily cap on entrants, including foreigners, is likely to be raised from 3,500 to 5,000. The government is also considering allowing people to end self-isolation if they test negative on the third day. Currently, people from countries and regions designated by the Japanese government are required to stay in accommodations assigned by quarantine offices for 3 to 10 days. The isolation period is likely to become 3 days for such entrants. Those who have gotten a booster shot and come from regions where the Omicron variant is not spreading are expected to be spared self-isolation. So yan ang news according sa NHK. Dumako naman tayo sa Nikkei Asia, and ito naman ang news nila. Japan weighs scrapping quarantines for some travelers. Vaccinated people from countries with slow COVID spread would be exempted. Japan's stringent border controls have come under criticism from the business community and foreign students planning to study in the country. So according sa news, Japan is considering ending quarantine and self-isolation requirements next month for fully vaccinated and boosted travelers arriving from countries where coronavirus cases are not rising rapidly, Nikkei has learned. Discussions have begun on how to loosen the stringent border controls imposed during November in response to the Omicron variant. The controls are now set to end in March. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida looks to announce the new measures soon. The cap on incoming travelers will be raised to 5,000 a day from 3,500. The government currently requires all foreign and Japanese travelers to isolate for at least 7 days after entering the country, even if they have been vaccinated. The potential relaxing of this requirement is based on the Omicron variant's relatively short incubation period between infection and the appearance of symptoms. Considering the variant continues to spread rapidly throughout much of the world, the change would be limited to just certain countries at this time, a senior official said. The isolation requirement will remain in place for unvaccinated travelers and those coming from countries where COVID-19 remains a serious problem, in part to let the government return to tighter curbs if another highly contagious variant emerges. Tokyo banned nearly all foreign travelers from entering Japan in November, while also imposing an across-the-board 14-day isolation requirement regardless of vaccination status. Although this was shortened to a minimum of 7 days in some cases late last month, Japan remains an outlier in the strictness of its border controls. Other countries have shortened or scrapped quarantine periods, including the UK, which as of Friday stopped requiring tests or isolation for vaccinated travelers arriving in England. Tokyo is slowly reopening to students and business travelers, but these gradual measures are far from the full reopening sought by many. Raising the daily cap to 5,000 people would bring Japan back to pre-Omicron levels, well below the average of 80,000 foreign travelers entering the country each day in 2019. There are growing calls within Japan's ruling coalition to reopen the borders further. When there are this many cases in the country, border controls are nearly pointless. Hiroshige Seko, the Liberal Democratic Party's Secretary General in the upper house of Parliament, told reporters Tuesday. We should review it quickly and, if possible, eliminate the cap. The party submitted a resolution Tuesday to Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno and Education Minister Shinsuke Suematsu, urging the government to let foreign students into the country again. About 30,000 foreign students join Japanese companies after graduation each year, and barring them from entry cuts off this flow of talent, the resolution said. Tomohiro Yamamoto, head of the LDP's Education Division, said Matsuno told him the government would consider the matter quickly as a new semester is set to begin in April. Members of junior coalition partner Komeito also submitted a resolution to Matsuno on Tuesday calling for the government to allow entry-ban foreign students without regard to criteria such as whether they are state-sponsored or funded privately. Tokyo so far has focused on those government scholarships. Some lawmakers remain reluctant to relax border controls too far when much of the country is still under heightened coronavirus countermeasures. We should gradually ease the restrictions while expanding the quarantine system. Masahisa Sato, head of the LDP's Foreign Affairs Division, told Nikkei. So ayan guys, ano ang masasabi ninyo sa mga naglabasang news today, February 16? I-comment down below ninyo. At kung nagustuhan nyo tong video na to, please like this video and mag-comment kayo, okay? I-share nyo na rin ito sa mga naghihintay ng news related sa travel ban dito sa Japan. Ayan. Sa mga patuloy na nanonood sa aming channel, maraming salamat sa inyong panonood. At sa mga nanonood pero hindi nakapag-subscribe, mag-subscribe na kayo at i-hit nyo yung notification bell, okay? So, ayan, until our next travel ban news, I will update you regularly. Thank you so much for watching and i-check nyo yung mga videos na lalabas dito sa screen.